Welcome to a very special edition to Table for Two. Today, Gillian will be interviewing one of the treasured members of Epiphany, Iris Dove, who will be celebrating her 100th birthday on the 21st of April. So congratulations, Iris, and over to you, Gillian.
Oh, Iris, I'm so excited to get a chance to do this. I just, well, it's just so exciting to, first of all, it's nice to see you, I must say. I think the last time I saw you was during one of the Tuesday morning things at the church, and you came in looking spiffy, as usual, Iris, spiffy. You always look so nice. So, Iris, I think we'll just start right at the beginning. Where were you actually born?
Where was I born?
Where were you born?
Yeah, Nova Scotia.
In Nova Scotia. Is that where you grew up?
That's where you grew up?
No, when I was 3, my dad joined the RCAF, and he was sent to Camp Orden, and my mom brought my brother and myself up by train to live in Angus, which is 4 miles from Camp Orden. And we stayed there for about 2 years, and then we moved to Camp Orden. I spent 13 years in Camp Orden. And then we moved.
So was that during the sort of just before the war years?
Pre-war.
Pre-war.
37. My dad was 36. My dad was transferred to Trenton, Ontario.
Right.
And then, and we were in Trenton till 1940. And then we moved to Guelph. And then my mom and dad lived there. And I got married in 44. And when Sid came back from overseas during the war, moved to Ottawa for a short period. And then we moved to about 4 different places before we came back to Ottawa in 1968. No, 58.
All right. You do well to remember those dates, Iris.
Huh?
Yep.
You do really well to remember those dates. I sometimes can't remember what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, don't ask me about things right now. I forget.
Well, some of the things right now are good to forget, Iris. Iris, where did you meet Sid?
My computer is full.
Oh.
I've been thinking and adding to it all.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's see.
She had a question, where did you meet Sid? Where did you meet Dad? When?
Oh, in Guelph. My husband Sid, we met in Guelph at number 4 Wireless School. My dad was there. And we were married in 1944. And we moved here 15 years ago, but he died 13 years ago.
I remember meeting Sid at Epiphany. He was a lovely man. He was a lovely man, for sure. So you did a lot of traveling around. Now, when you were growing up, what was your growing up like? Was your dad always with the family when he was in the forces?
Well, yes, Dad they didn't transfer the men very much pre-war. But soon as war broke out, that was different. Everything was different. But growing up on a military base, we had to behave ourselves.
I'm a military brat myself, Iris. I sort of remember that even at my age.
Well, you didn't do something. If you misbehaved, your father got in trouble too. So you toed the line. But my growing up years, I went to high school in Barrie. We had to get on a bus at 7:30 in the morning and go and stay all day and come home. We wouldn't get home till close to 5. But guess what? Barrie was only 16 miles away.
Oh my goodness.
But then it was a gravel road. A part of the road was sand. And it wasn't, it was a big deal.
A big deal.
16 miles today. Whoa.
Yeah.
It
And was that even
interesting.
during the winter, right, Iris? You have to take a bus over those roads in the winter?
Yeah, we did. But one time it was a terrible snowstorm while we were in school, and we were stuck for quite a while on the road. But fortunately, the Air Force, they were playing hockey that night, and they had come to Barrie. So when they had a plow to bring them out from Borden, so we went back home. But I didn't get home till about 8 o'clock at night.
It's a long day. That's a long day.
You were on your own.
You just went in there and did it. So,
It was because we couldn't stay after school. We couldn't get any involved in sports in Barrie at
Right.
the high school. So you learn to visit your friends and spend your time with them.
right.
But I never figured it was a big deal because I didn't know any better then.
Right. Iris, it's funny. I actually, I lived in Barrie myself about 40 years ago for a couple of years. So I bet there was a big difference between when you lived there, went there to school, and when I lived there. That's for sure. So
School, you went to school, you came away from school. But Camp Borden had nothing for us.
oh,
We were not adding to the service. We were a liability.
right.
But
Yeah. Now, Iris, when you finished high school, did you do further training? And if so, what did you train in?
I went to business college,
Okay.
so I worked in the office. I worked in several places. But when I came back from overseas, I devoted my time to my family. That
Right.
was the main object, my husband and my children.
Right. They certainly benefited from that. Were you married to Sid? I'm really bad with dates. Were you married to Sid before he went overseas, or did you get married when he came back? Oh,
He
sorry.
was overseas for years.
Okay.
He went to Burma, India, and I was home with my parents, and I went to work.
Okay. Huh. That another interesting too, Iris, because that's my dad went to Burma and India. So it's funny to have some common things going on there. So once you
Oh,
Her father went to Burma and India.
he did?
yes,
She's a brother. Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting to see those connections. So so once you were married and you had kids, you stayed home and looked after your family.
Yep. No. She asked you, when you got married, you stayed home and looked after your family.
Well, after I got married, it wasn't until Sid came back from overseas that I was able to set up housekeeping.
Okay.
In the meantime, Sid moved around.
I know in your life you've had lots of things to deal with and things going on with your family and I mean lately in the world in general. So how have you stayed so strong? You know, like how do you keep going with things? What is your go-to for staying strong and helpful with, you're always so kind to others, I know, but what is your formula for staying strong with so many things going on?
Well, I try to be positive. I believe God will always help me, but it's been difficult at times, and much more so since Sid died. He was a great man. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could add much more to that.
Okay.
And I have wonderful friends, younger. All my friends my age have gone. And
Right.
that's a very lonesome spot in my life. I think of something, I thought, oh, I could talk to so and so, and then it won't, not possible. So, and I'm lucky I have a loving family. And Linus, she's a gem.
She's a gem. She's a gem. Now you spoke of your family. How many children and grandchildren do you have?
Well,
And great grandchildren, I guess.
I only have two left, Michael and Elizabeth, who lives in Calgary. Sharon died. I have four grandchildren, and I have 10 great grandchildren.
Wow.
The 10 starts at be a year, one is 6 months, right up till they'll be turning 13 and 11, 12. They're wonderful.
They must help keep you young.
I'm very blessed with all my family, but I find COVID has ruined everything.
It's been a very hard challenge, hasn't it, Iris, not to see people and hug them?
I can't visit with anybody, and that is hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. So I know it's a challenge. I know I have kids, you know, my kids don't live in Ottawa, so we just see each other too on, you know, on the way we're seeing each other now, you know, but it's been a challenge for sure. I think it's one of the very big challenges we've had to face. For me, it has been anyways. So, but you're so lucky to have, I mean, you have quite a few people right in Ottawa, right? I mean, although you can't see them in person, I think they must worry about you not even having you get sick. So.
Oh, I'm lucky. I have some very special friends who I keep in touch, but with the younger ones, I need friends.
Right.
We all do. And we're all in the same boat. We can't do anything about it unless more people follow the rules.
Right. Now, when you were younger, Iris, did you have a really big social life? What kind of things did you do when you were raising your kids and with other friends close by? How did you keep entertained?
My house was an open house for children. Somebody said, why don't you hang out your shingle for daycare? I knew where my children were. They come home and they brought their friends. I loved every minute of it. And sometimes Elizabeth would say, Mommy, can so-and-so stay for supper? And I said, don't ask in front of them in case I have to say no. All my children were welcome their friends. I was happy to have them. And if I could find extra food, I didn't let them come.
So did you live, now when you were living, did you live on base? Did you live on the bases for the forces? Or were you outside of the base when you were married?
After the war, Sid joined the Canadian Air Force. He was in the Royal Air Force.
Right.
And we moved around quite, but we didn't live on base too much. We had 4 years at Uplands.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. So it sounds like your house was a hub of socialization for kids and places to play. Did the other parents just go, oh, my kid must be at Iris's?
Well, we've set up our house on Maybank before when we moved there, and I'd have 4 different age levels. Rated them, and they had fun.
Good.
And still one fellow in particularly lives in Montreal, and he used to come at our place, and I've known him since he was about 16. And he remembers well.
That's lovely.
It's nice. But I still say I'm lonesome from all my friends.
Right, right. When you were moving around from place to place, how did you start meeting people? Were you comfortable? You just invite people to your house, or and socialize with them then, or?
When we moved to Uplands and the children, Sharon and Michael, were lonesome, they say, Mommy, why don't you invite somebody in for tea?
And that's where it started. I know you're very welcoming. I know when I had meet you, when occasionally I'd go to Linus's house when she was looking after kids, you'd come in and say hello and how are you doing? You're very warm and welcoming. It's lovely.
Well, I love it because it made my life. Our home was always open house.
Oh.
And so Mom did it, I did it.
Yeah, yeah. You had a welcoming home to grow up in. And so you did the same. That's great. That's great.
Met the people through church. Some of my best friends were from church. So that was a good connection. And we made our friends through the service of the Air Force.
Right. And have you always been a church person, Iris? Have you always gone to church? Like
Yes.
when you were growing up and as an adult?
At Camp Borden, it was different. Our priest came from Toronto on Friday night. He was there until Sunday morning, and then he left. So we had no one on base, only on weekends.
Okay.
We moved to Trenton. It was the biggest delight to go to church. And I used to go to church twice a day.
Really? Okay. Did a lot of your social activities, like did you join women's groups and things?
Hmm?
Did you join, were there women's groups to join? I know, well, I'm guessing Sharon got her creativity probably from you. I remember Sharon was very creative and very clever making things. Were you like that as well?
Yeah, yes. My mom was like that. It's
Okay.
not, I think my granddaughters inherited the same.
Well, that's great. It's lovely to see that going through the generations, isn't it? But for sure.
Well, if you like doing things with your hands, you'll do it.
Right. And it brings such joy to people.
And it's surprising. I have a niece, but my daughter-in-law, she was no good with sewing, knitting. She was completely out of it. And her daughter now is sewing and teaching because
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. So she must have got that gene somewhere from the family, right? Probably from your side.
I guess so.
I guess so. So Iris, in the 100 years that have gone by that you've been alive, I'm just wondering, what would you say was some of the biggest things that you've seen happen in 100 years? And what of those things do you think are good things?
It's kind of hard to answer. There were lots of special days.
What are some of those?
I think getting married, having my children. My later years, we traveled quite a bit. Well, we used to go to the Barbados, or we fly out to Calgary, or we go down to Nova Scotia. So my time was quite busy in my later years. It was
Right.
busy before, but in a different way.
In a different way.
I think just now, and I think back, Gillian, I think just living, having a family, those are important to me. Memories are important.
Right. Right.
And,
Well, you've obviously done a wonderful, wonderful job with your family. That's for sure. And you always have looked great, Iris. So like whenever I've seen you, you always look very stylish, and you probably shared that. Did you do things like sew a lot of clothes and everything, like sew your own clothes and like bake everything from scratch?
I sewed because it was basically cheaper. We couldn't afford it. And I would make sure my girls looked stylish, and myself.
Right.
And I made all my clothes and all the girls' clothes. And even when I was married, I made my own wedding dress.
Oh, really?
Oh, well, and then I made all my girls their dresses: Linus, Mike, Elizabeth, Sharon.
Wow. I didn't realize that. Didn't realize you were like, that's dressmaker quality sewing.
And they and my grandchildren, I didn't make for them, but I did a few people in the church, my good friends. I helped them. I made dresses for them. It wasn't because I needed the money. It was I loved to do it.
Right. And you were good at it.
Hmm?
And you were good at it.
Well, thank you. One
Um,
of the biggest days in my life Just when Sid came back from overseas, I prayed every day he'd be safe.
Mm,
He had some pretty scary times. He was flying and it was dangerous.
right. I think that must have been the common thread, right, for women that were left behind. It must have been a time of great fear, but at the same time you were fearful, you had to get on with things.
Well, Gillian, every day you'd pick up the paper and you'd look and say, who is it now I know? I had school chums, I had friends who were killed overseas.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty stressful time to go through.
Yeah. And yet you've come out of it, and you were so strong coming out of it, and then raising such a lovely family with great faith.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And Sid was away from me a lot during the later years in the Air Force, and
Yeah.
I couldn't always go, so I'd be on my own with my children. But that was part of the service.
Right. You were sort of it's not just the man that's in the military, right? It's the whole family that's in the military.
True. The kids said, Mom, you were the one that raised us. Dad didn't.
Right. Right. That's true, I guess, for many families at that time. For many families.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Now,
we were not priority in the service.
right. You must be amazed these days. I know it's come slowly, but you must think back and imagine that whoever thought that you'd be talking through a phone and seeing somebody and talking to them, one of so many technical changes in your lifetime, TV and computers. And even I remember when we got our first TV, it was a monumental thing.
I remember when Kleenex was invented.
When which was invented?
Kleenex.
Really? Now it's always been part of my life. I never even thought about when it was.
Granted, I know that for a while they were colored, and it was a big deal for me to get a box of Kleenex. Wow.
I guess so. It would be. Oh, you don't think of that. I bet you were washing and ironing hankies at that time.
You wash Monday, you iron Tuesday, you sew on buttons Tuesday.
Yeah.
You were always sewing on buttons because the washer, the ringers, they take buttons off like nothing.
Yeah. That was before zippers were all over the place. Yeah.
So, today the cars, everything automatic. You have a life of entirely different.
When you were a child, did your family have a car?
Yes, well, my dad got the first car in 1925. That was a second one, but he got a brand new Model T Ford in 1927, and we drove from Camp Borden to Nova Scotia.
How long did that take?
About 2.5 days.
Right.
We arrived at my grandparents about 10 o'clock at night, but it was quite a trip, and it was open like they called it a touring car, and it had curtains they buttoned on when it got cold. Oh, it was in the wintertime, it was horrible. You practically froze. but it was wonderful. We had a real brand new car.
That's fabulous. That's a great story. You know, we think it's a long, you know, now we sort of do that trip in a day, right? These days. So, and how long could you take the train from Nova Scotia to Borden?
I think that, I'm not sure. I was only 3,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
and I think it was about 3 days, but it was pretty rugged.
Right.
My
Right.
mom, they down there, they told her she could get a sleeper when she got to the train station. No way. My mom sat up for 3 days with 2 children.
Oh, we're spoiled. My generation and the generation after us, they're just spoiled pirates.
Well, it is, but enjoy what you have. Be thankful you can enjoy it.
You know what, Iris? I think that's a lovely, lovely phrase to end our interview on. You're an amazing woman. I'm so happy that I know you and that I had this opportunity. You're really special.
Oh, thank you, Gillian. I'm just an ordinary person.
Well, you've seen and done extraordinary things. And the most important thing you seem to have done is raise those kids of yours. They're just, Mike and Linus are a lovely family, and Joss and Sharon, you know, and the grandkids. They're lovely kids.
Joss is a great person.
He is.
I even say I'm blessed. I am blessed with wonderful people.
Right.
And through Linus and Michael and all of the family, I've met some wonderful people.
And they've met you, which I'm sure made a big impression on their life. I really hope, Iris, that we get back to church at some time. You're able to come, or we're able to do that chat business on Tuesday mornings. I miss chatting a lot with all those. I just miss, like you do. It's a lonesome time, even if you have wonderful family.
Thank you. Those mornings I went to church when you were in the knitting club.
Yes. I just like to.
I was 97, 98.
Yeah.
And I knit a scarf. I knit a cover for people. I did 2 or 3 pieces. I didn't think I'd be able to get back to knitting, and I did.
That's good for you. You probably knit better than I do. I'm just a knitter. I find purling a challenge. So. And my mother, being a British person, she was a really good knitter, but I never seem to have got that talent.
I love knitting. I loved all this crafts. They were challenging.
Right, right. Well, I'm going to let you go. Linus, can you poke your head in? I just wanted to say, Linus, thank you for being there and helping. I know we've had struggles with it today with the technical challenges, but we've worked through it. And I really appreciate you being there to help.
Yeah, thank you, Judith. She's the one who walked me through and says, how about push that button?
Oh, well, we'll laugh about this.
Yeah,
We'll laugh about starting.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Iris, thank you so much again for taking the time. I'm sure you must be weary after all our attempts at this interview today, but I know everybody's just going to love hearing your stories.
It was a challenge for me, but I enjoyed it.
Good. Well, have the happiest of birthdays in these strange times.
Well, it's going to be different.
It's going to be different, but we'll all be thinking of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.